Duality of Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. So far, we have seen the glory of Sankhya Yoga, which leads one to the actualization of self knowing and the means of attaining it. This was essentially Karma Yoga, doing the ordinary daily duties in a detached manner as an act of surrender to Brahma. Jnana Yoga or Sankhya Yoga is always connected to the statement Aham Brahmasmi. So, how is a sadhak supposed to link the two? This doubt arose in the mind of King Varenya because the power of meditative union through Jnana Yoga led to the actualization of Swaswanand. But to exhaust the remaining prarabdha, one requires to take a body, that is, take rebirth. But he remembered that a liberated soul continues to have awareness. The next doubt that arose in the mind of King Varenya was that, in such circumstances, while the Karma Yoga is carried out in an attitude of surrender to the divine, how does one remain quiet when there is a connection to awareness of Aham Brahmasmi? In reality, the area of influence and authority of Karma Yoga in surrendering to the divine and the authority of steadfastness in Jnana Yoga and penance being basically different should not give any scope for doubt. Only when there is no actualization the difference will be known. Therefore, in the absence of knowledge for such a sadhak, there is the possibility that such a doubt may arise. In order to make him understand the available arrangement, it is necessary to provide a clarification as well. Therefore, Varenya asks, Varenya uvacha Jnana nishta karma nishta dvayam proktam tvaya vibho avadharya vadaikam me nishreyasa karannu kim. Since he was in such a dualistic state of mind, King Varenya thought of asking Sri Ganesha Prabhu regarding this matter. Varenya asks, You have told me the characteristics of a Sankhya Yoga and brought the same to my attention. In that state, nothing of me or you remains. Even if a yogi is in this state, he would still be required to assume a body to fulfill his prarabdha karmas. In such a situation, when a body is assumed, it is said that karmas like food for sustenance, etc., have to be performed and should be done in an attitude of surrender to the Atman, Ganesha himself. This is indicative of steadfastness in one's karma. In Jnana Yoga, the steadfastness is not determined by surrender of karma or the karta. Then, what determines one's steadfastness in Jnana Yoga? I am confused in this matter. King Varenya says, O Swami Gajanana, you are the only one who is capable of removing my doubt. You are so close to me. I am your servant, having surrendered everything else. Haven't you taken birth as my son? Just do away with all that is binding to your devotee. Then to whom else can I tell my doubts except you? Is it true that what I am feeling about the contradictory nature of the two, is it real? What is my capacity to think of it part by part? What is it that I should understand? And what should I do in order to attain you? Please tell me. Attaining you is impossible without your blessings. Therefore, you alone should relieve me of my doubts. Sri Gargya Maharshi's commentary. Let us look at Sri Gargya Maharshi's commentary for the explanation to the mysteries here. In the first chapter, there was a description of yoga and the discrimination between the goals and the tools for attaining it, listening to which a doubt arose in the mind of King Varenya. Firstly, the necessary karmas to be done in an attitude of surrender to Brahma for attaining the divine powers were the means by themselves. It was said that it is possible to accomplish those karmas serially through the states of superconscious meditative union onwards, leading to supraconscious meditative union. This gives an experience of that state. This results in self-knowing, leading to stability of the mind and intellect. When one attains steadfastness in those states, one fully understands the knowledge of Sankhya philosophy. On the same lines, after steadfastness of the mind and intellect, the main tool is to do karma yoga in an attitude of surrender to Brahma. The body is mainly for the fulfillment of destiny ordained by karmas. There is always a consciousness of being in the witness state to accomplish that. Therefore, it is necessary to keep karma going for its own sake. Otherwise, the steadfastness of the mind and intellect will be disturbed. And then there is every possibility of falling from the state of yoga. Then, what path should one adopt after self-actualization? When this doubt arose in the mind of King Varenya, he questioned, O Lord of the universe, Gajanana, you have always bestowed your complete grace upon me. You have taught me the two paths. When one attains the power of superconscious meditative union, there is peace for the single pointedness of the mind. And it is the same with supraconscious meditative union. Later, with the dissolution of the causal matter, one attains the state of self-actualization with the experience of being in the corporeal. One does not have the slightest inkling of duality in experiences, which becomes a permanent knowledge. Walking safely on this path is to persistently adhere to karma yoga. It is also said that this is the second path. Therefore, out of these two paths, which one should I select and stick to till the end? The exasperation of Varenya is due to his temporary delusion in understanding. The nature, field of influence, the eligibility and the means of achieving both paths are completely different but not contradictory to each other, though attainable serially. But how is it that they are complementary and nurturing to each other? Sri Gajanan Prabhu begins his reply in the second verse. Sri Gajanan uvacha asmin charachare sthityo purokte dve maya priya sankhyanam buddhi yogena vaidha yogena karmanam. He says, you are asking me this question mainly to know the complete sequence thoroughly. Those sadhaks who only perform will benefit from your question. That's why you are so dear to me. You are doing a great service to them, as the knowledge will benefit sadhaks of karma yoga. For this reason too, you are my beloved and my favorite. Here the words indicated by addressing King Varenya by using the word priya. This also puts the person in a receptive frame of mind, where suitable and appropriate for illumination. The word asmin is used to indicate the tools of the two paths for achievement of swaswanand. The word charachara includes all animate and inanimate things. Even though a yogi might have become a liberated soul while living and established his mind in the bliss of his own self, he continues to function with his soul as a reflection in his body. Even though the soul may be the witness state, there is complete awareness of all bodily functions. This means both good and bad experiences continue to happen. That is why it is said, surrender all actions to me. Therefore, as long as there is awareness, all actions continue naturally. Duty is not the means. This is the characteristic of animate. All actions that are surrendered to me get merged into me. This is the meaning of the word chara. The steadfast state in Jnana Yoga is said to be inanimate. How is that so? He says, after attaining superconscious meditative union, one experiences the absence of things, which is the beginning of being in Brahma. That sadhak is said to be liberated while still in his body. He has no connection to bodily activities. The destiny ordained actions continue. Since there is absolutely no connection to the reflection here, except to the reflection of the witness, all forbearance for actions is merely a reflection. The sadhak carrying the feelings and experiences of the earlier life with the powers of siddhi and buddhi in my form become completely absorbed in my absolute self-knowing state. The awareness of the witness state also does not remain. The state of the sadhak is virtually incorporeal. In that state, there is no scope for any action or surrender. Therefore, that state of the sadhak is said to be inanimate. When the sadhak is engaged in karma yoga, he is in the animate form where the body is engaged in the experience. When that experience becomes a reflection, the sadhak becomes established in the practice of Jnana Yoga, and then he is in the inanimate state. In brief, with the expectation of experiencing dual states, namely the state of Karma Yoga and the state of steadfastness in Jnana Yoga, it is possible for the sadhak to assume whichever state he desires as appropriate. Since he remains connected, there is no conflict between both of them, and there is no reason to believe so. He elucidates the same thing further. With supraconscious meditative union, where there is a restraint of tendencies, it is essential to serially accomplish Anna Brahma for actualization of the Absolute. The state of a yogi until that time remains as a liberated soul. By the time he starts one by one the actualization of these states, going from completing the experience of one Brahma and then proceeding on to the next, it is necessary for him to actualize these states progressively. In the end, he reaches total non-differentiation. Until then, by observing the reflection and through incorporeal, he becomes steadfast in the practice of Jnana Yoga, and through reflection, he becomes steady in Karma Yoga of bodily experiences. Knowing this secret makes one free of all doubts. Now he goes on to explain the secret of the Sankhya. In order to attain psychic powers, it is necessary to serially experience Brahma. The Vedas have made a proper counting of them, known as Sankhya. Observing the steadfastness of Jnana Yoga goes on until the end, and the experience of the incorporeal state happens only because of Buddhi Yoga. Therefore, Sankhya is also known as Buddhi Yoga. Since there are many Brahmic states to be attained, it is given in plural. In the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, there is a mention of Buddhi as Sankhya. Buddhi, which is plural in number, becomes undivided when the complete knowledge of Sankhya is attained. In such a state, there is no separate place for the doer, as that has been completely surrendered. This is the steadfastness in Jnana. That state of steadfastness in Jnana, through the completion of Sankhya, is inanimate. This is the meaning of Sankhyanam Buddhi Yogena Pada. Now let us look at the Vaidya Yogena Karmanam Pada. Whatever may be the karma, the means for doing it are predetermined. Therefore, Vidhinam Bhavani Vaidhani. Taking this derivation into account, karmas are termed as Vaid, legal or lawful. Through the power gained by the surrender of karmas to the divine, such Vaidbhut Yoga is possible only in Ganesha's abode. Here the karma is animate and is indicative of Karma Yoga. Such knowledge and steadfastness in Yoga and Karma Yoga becomes necessary until the actualization stage of the form of self. Such a dual steadfastness and an authority are absolutely attainable sequentially. That is why there is no scope for contradictory doubts. Through the accomplishment of steadfastness in Karma Yoga, the body becomes a reflection of the witness consciousness, and through yoga concludes in the non-differentiated form at the abode of Ganesha. In the same way, the steadfastness in Jnana Yoga in the incorporeal state provides a harmonious connection for attainment of total non-differentiated state of the union of all in the abode of Swananda. Thus, this duality is very ancient. This is the secret between the animate and inanimate. Sri Gargya Maharshi states this beautifully in his commentary. He states, on the path of attainment of supraconscious meditative union, the sadhak comes across two types of states, the animate and the inanimate. Karma Yoga, with its undertaking of surrender of fruits to Brahma, is acceptable as it makes the attainment of the Atma of Brahma possible. So, the surrender of karmas to the divine means to maintain a connection to the non-differentiated state of Parabrahma. The animate state means the attainment of the Brahma of one's karma. Some people think the word karmana means something impure, while some learned men think it to mean karminam, the reaction of a deluded and foolish mind. There are a number of different kinds of experiences and they end in a state of mind which is swananda. Therefore, coming to conclusion through experience and then forgetting the conclusions through the strength of mental discrimination, and determination is the state of experience of Sankhya. This is achieved and can be achieved only through steadfastness in one's Atman. Therefore, it is known as inanimate. There are the kinds of mysteries of arrangements and experiences. Therefore, the absence of connection is not the reason for confusion. The inadequate understanding of the ancient path of discrimination states that arising out of external consciousness of the body and the state of a harmonious connection with the internal Atma are different from each other. The material conscious, extroverted intellectual sadhak does not get inspired by it. That is why such a doubting nature develops. This in turn gives rise to questions such as whether I should do karma or leave it. Isn't this a question of a foolish one? An explanation of this is given in the next sloka. Anarambena vaidhanam nishkriya purusho bhavet na siddhim yati santyaga kevala karmanam nrupam. Dharma of the body is action, which is subject to doing some action or the other all the time. Then, where is the question of whether one should begin doing action or not? If one begins, then it may actually lead to a few actions being avoided. Such wasteful actions will be of no use in attaining any kind of psychic powers. This is the meaning of the sloka. But to understand it more clearly, we need to first understand the meaning of sacrifice that is used in the path of karma. So Sri Gajanan Prabhu first instructs about the path of karma. Let us understand the secret of that path. The book Yoga Vasishta is famous for its instructions about the path of yoga by Muni Vasishta to Sri Ramachandra about 7 types of knowledge and the roles they play in leading to the attainment of Purna Yoga Siddhi. He had instructed in the beginning about the role of Shubhecha, which means auspicious desires. Firstly, why can't it be done through desires? A sadhak who does good deeds should do actions which will contribute to the purity of his mental vital consciousness substance and will enable him to perform his dharma ordained karmas in an attitude of surrender to Brahma. He believes in that. The moment a desire arises, even it be for a fraction of a second, he immediately becomes agitated and wishes to engage only where he can get permanent happiness, such as liberation. Holding on to such subjects that are liberating and making efforts to attain them is what Shubhecha stands for, the first role of knowledge. Contemplating about the various states of Brahma while learning the deeper meaning of the Shastras and remaining in close proximity to a Sadguru are the means by which a sadhak tries to use the tools of spiritual practice which is conducive to attaining liberation. This is the second role of knowledge and is known as vicharana or inquiry. With the strength gained from spiritual practices, one is blessed with the eye of wisdom, which when used with discernment goes to attain the 8 types of psychic powers of superconscious meditative union. This is the third role on the path of divine ascent and is known as manasa or a sensory mind where the faculty of deep thinking and reflection is possible. When one practices the single pointedness of the mind's tendencies, the mental vital consciousness substance of the yoga sadhak becomes extremely subtle, which characteristic goes by the name of tanu manasa, meaning the thread-like state of the mind, where the mind becomes extremely subtle and is attenuated with depleted impurities. In the end, the sadhak begins to observe restraint over the tendencies of the mind. This goes to the extent of restraining even the powers of concentration achieved earlier. When all of them gets absorbed, the sadhak achieves supraconscious meditative union, by which he begins to experience the Swananda meditative union. It is then that he gains complete control over all differences and non-differences and becomes capable of regulating them. These roles are classified under 4 heads: pure tendencies, absence of attraction, absence of material feelings, and state of pure consciousness. The actualization of Asat Swananda Brahma is accomplished through steadfastness in Karma Yoga, through the role of pure tendencies called Sattvapatti, the 4th role. That power which will actualize the Satswananda Brahma is steadfastness in Jnana Yoga, known as Asan Sakti, or stability of the intellect with absence of attraction, the 5th role of knowledge. Next, the actualization of Vaishnava Brahma, who is of the nature of Samayoga, is done by the power of the mind, Padartha Bhavini, or natural philosophy, the 6th role of knowledge. After this, the glory of Shaiva, whose characteristic is Sahaja Brahma, will be accomplished by the power of pure consciousness, or Turyaga, which is the 7th and the last role. So these are the 7 roles of knowledge described in Yoga Vasishta as told to Sri Ram. Here, the role of knowledge comes to an end because the knower and the known attain completion. So, one who has succeeded in attaining the psychic powers of the 7 roles achieves a breakthrough into the state of pure consciousness, which is the state of Brahma. This is the essence of the book Yoga Vasishta. Among the 7 roles, the 4th role is of the nature of Karma Yoga. A detailed explanation of it was given earlier in Ganesha Gita. One who attains the Siddhi of Jnana Yoga is truly blessed. If a sadhak following the path of Jnana Yoga does not observe the serial order on that path, and if he gives up karmas on account of having adopted Jnana Yoga, then that Jnana Yoga will drown him. This is because without having an understanding of the correct knowledge and serial order of things, it is foolish to give up only external actions. Not only is he devoid of the tool of karmic sacrifice, but having given up dharma ordained karmas as well, he will not gain any merits. So how to gain freedom from the bondage of karma? Without accomplishing the actualization of Swaswanand, the giving up of one's karma means getting oneself free from the bondage of karma, without attaining the power of knowledge that the path confers. This is the truth. In order to give a definite solution on this subject, Sri Ganaraja Prabhu begins the next verse, the 4th one. Kadachit kriyako api kshananaivavatishthati aswatantra prakriti je gunai karma cha karyate. He says, to fully understand the nature of Karma Yoga, you should listen and contemplate further. If one has to earn the blessings and grace of the divine, one has to religiously perform one's karma in an attitude of surrender to Brahma. Any human being who has assumed a body cannot remain without performing some kind of karma or the other. The body's nature is to perform karma. The body will necessarily do some action or the other all the time. Besides, causal matter with its threefold qualities is the source of existence for the body. Those 3 qualities are the spiritual Tamoguna, the physical Rajoguna, and the divine Sattvaguna. From the spiritual tamoguna are created 5 primordial elements, namely earth, water, fire, air and space, and the 5 senses, namely speech, touch, form, taste and smell. From the physical rajoguna are created the 5 organs of action and the 5 sense organs, thereby totaling 10 organs. From the divine sattoguna, deities are created where they reside on each of the sense organs. The root of the spiritual tamoguna is the ego. The root of the 10 types of sense organs is the intellect, and the root of the sattvic deities is the mind. In this manner, one should try to understand the root of the ego, intellect and mind. The word tamoguna is the form and nature of things. Creation of different kinds of things is the work of rajoguna, and the knowledge that is necessary for their assistance is the work of sattoguna. In the same way, the waking state in nature is rajoguna, the dream state in nature is sattoguna, and the deep sleep state is tamoguna in nature. Thus, the threefold nature of Maya is the origin of the body and is the causal matter. The Turiya Atma is what gives her the power. Turiya is pure consciousness and Atman is a particle of that. Associating with causal matter, the consciousness gets enchanted by her and gives her that power. That is how all the work gets done. Enchanted by her, consciousness becomes one with her and forgets all about the joy of the soul, and living in the threefold body, he becomes that form itself. If the body is happy, he is happy. If the body is sad, he is sad. Getting entangled in such delusionary awareness, he goes about engaging in the cycle of birth and death. Finding himself bound to the control of causal matter, that individual soul gets entangled within her. To be liberated from her clutches, he loses control of himself. In summary, the individual soul who becomes bound by causal matter cannot remain without performing karmas. All the 3 states being embedded in karma, he cannot be isolated from it even for a fraction of a second. Even if one mentally decides against any action, still the causal matter in the form of the body, with the conscious soul within, completely under her control, continues to perform karmas. It becomes impossible for him to free himself of any karma. If such a conscious soul supporting the body's desires goes beyond all karmas, gives up all dharma ordained karmas, he will go to hell. That is not the path for becoming a karma or free of karma. That subject is altogether different. In order to clarify this line of thought, Sri Ganaraja Prabhu begins the next sloka. Karma karindriya gramam niyamyaste smaran puman tadgocharan mandachitta adhigochara sabhanyate. If a soul who has assumed a body that is bound to do karmas decides not to do anything, then such a deluded mind becomes idle, and even though it has decided to be so, it is not possible to remain so. This is because the sense organs and organs of action are completely drawn in and held together, but it is possible to numb only the 5 organs of action. The 5 sense organs still continue their work. When you breathe, the nose receives it. It's not possible to shut it close. The same is the story with the ears and the eyes. When heat or cold touches the skin, we immediately experience them. The work of the tongue is to taste. That too happens automatically. How is it possible to stop these? In brief, it is impossible for an embodied soul to remain without doing any action. Besides, the mind, which is the origin of all 10 sense organs, is engaged in thoughts of material objects all the time. Even when the sense organs are not doing any work externally, the mind keeps encouraging them internally towards sense objects. Thus, sense organs keep thinking of material enjoyments through the mind. If through the mind the sense organs keeps contemplating on material objects, what is the use of avoiding it externally? That cannot be called absence of action. In summation, by obstructing or avoiding doing action externally, it will merely amount to deciding one thing externally and feeling another thing internally. Such a behavior is as good as abandonment. Besides, one does not get any satisfaction doing that. Under such circumstances, what should be the main duty? That is to say, how is one to accomplish the surrender of all actions to the divine through Karma Yoga? The answer is revealed in the next verse. Tadagramam satniyam yad manasa karmacharabhet indriye karma yogo yo vitrishna saparo nrapa. Sri Gajanan Prabhu says to King Varenya, even though one may do actions, it need not necessarily be binding. I shall clarify this further. A human being who has assumed a body cannot escape from doing karma. Keeping this in mind, one should necessarily do one's duties to one's dharma. For accomplishment of akarma, there is no use of merely relinquishing external activities because till death, the sense organs are constantly desirous of engaging in material enjoyments and they keep deriving continuous inspiration from the mind to do so. Until that time, there is no use of merely sacrificing the external karmas. That kind of sacrifice does not happen. Sacrificing one's dharma ordained karmas will only lead you to the path of hell. Therefore, firstly, one should draw the sense organs from going outwards towards the sense objects they are attracted to. For achieving that, one should contemplate in one's mind that one cannot attain enjoyment of sense objects without fulfilling one's satkarmas. Why cannot one do actions only with pure desire by holding the sense organs away from their sense objects? Therefore, one should do good karmas and get the sense organs to engage in such material enjoyments. It is then that there will be no opposition in fulfilling the duties according to one's dharma. Again, the fruits for one's actions should be surrendered to me. Then it will mean that all actions are being done to please Ganesha. When one entertains such an attitude, he will be devoid of selfishness. So anyone who holds back the sense organs from its natural tendency towards material enjoyments and performs one's ordained karmas, surrendering the fruits thereof to me, will not have to face the bondage of karma. This is the path for adhering to akarma. A sadhak who performs good deeds while surrendering its fruits to me, I grant him the path of liberation as fruits of his actions. This is very clearly indicated by the shloka, Tad gramam manasa sanyama cha karma arambet ya sa para vitrushna. Therefore, one who gives up his discriminative thinking and keeps aside his karmas is a grave sinner. He attains hell. Instead of sacrificing one's karmas in this manner, he is better off who does all his actions with good intentions. This is further elaborated in verse 7, which we shall see in the next audio.